Hello, yes? Yes, 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 yes? The line's busy. There's no one on it now, but I'm expecting a call. Might remember a while ago I did a review of the 2003 box set, the Three Stooges DVD 12-pack. This had a couple of the feature films and pretty much all of the little themed short collections. Remember, in the days of VHS and the early days of DVD, it was much more common to see a TV release that was just sort of select episodes. Maybe a best of release, or maybe holiday themed, or something like that. Sometimes even just completely random, like here's a collection of random I Love Lucy best of episodes. The Stooges were no stranger to this, and had many VHS releases over the 80s and 90s that were just kind of three random shorts stuck onto a video. Sometimes they were all connected, sometimes they weren't. It kind of depended on the situation. All of the Curly shorts got a VHS release, and most of the Shemp shorts did as well, up through about 1950. The mid-50s stuff, the stock footage remakes and whatnot, and not so much. There were some kind of off-brand tie-in ones like the Good Times VHS tapes and whatnot you could throw into the mix, but the point is, DVD for the Stooges kind of became maybe unfulfilling for a lot of fans. Most of these themed collections only had 6 or 7 shorts, generally with little rhyme or reason to them, sort of stuck onto a single disc. You might remember if you watched this review, I was especially critical of the last DVD in the set, the Three Smart Saps release. Three Smart Saps has a bevy of problems, including a misleading cover image, a short that wasn't actually on the disc. It had an edited film, in this case a copy of Three Little Beers that was missing footage, and something that didn't bother me at the time because it would kind of become the norm, as we'll talk about today, only featured 5 short films, giving it a runtime of 82 minutes, which, you know, in an era where these sort of little themed collections are kind of being phased out, was irksome, at least in my eyes. Now, there were quite a few home video releases done in this way, as you can see in this box set. And again, you can go watch my video if you want kind of a play-by-play of all the DVDs here. But as the 2000s turned into the mid-2000s, I think that Sony could kind of see the writing on the wall, that just churning out these little 5 shorts here, 6 shorts there, wasn't really what people wanted. We're reaching an era where we start to see entire seasons of TV shows released in, broadcast order or production order, often with bonus features and whatnot, that, these sorts of little collections were kind of reaching the end of their lives. There were exceptions. Here's I Love Lucy's Christmas collection, which featured a Christmas episode and a few fan favorites. The Honeymooners had a very similar release. So these things weren't entirely out of the realm of possibility when it came to what a home media company could release, but they were certainly losing favor. We'll come back to this Lucy one later. But let's look at the last few themed Three Stooges releases, because as many of us know, and something I was very grateful for, and maybe you are too, eventually we would get the proper sort of TV season style releases. Every short from a certain year in production order, or release order, in this case not production order, in release order and, restored and whatnot. But let's look at the last of the themed collections from 2003. When we talked about in the last video, just briefly, Three Stooges in History. So again, we're down to 5 shorts. This does better than Three Smart Saps, though, because the shorts are very well themed. We have 2 Curlies, and the rest are all Shemp. Matrophony, despite its difficult production history, is a really fun short, and one I've always really enjoyed, and seeing the Stooges' take on ancient Greece is pretty funny. Restless Nights, a very early one, not one of my favorites, but I'm glad it's here, because some of the early shorts, like Horses, Collars, and Pardon My Scotch, were skipped over for these releases. And then we have the rest with Shemp. We have the Caveman Adventure, I'm a Monkey's Uncle, which is kind of fun, and Squareheads of the Round Table is good. Never liked Fiddler's 3 much, but I'm glad that they picked a short that would actually fit on the set, kind of borrowing from the I'm a Monkey's Uncle VHS, I think, and going purely historical. So Yeah, you know, again, it's kind of light with a runtime of 85 minutes and only 5 films, but at least everything kind of feels like it belongs. We're not getting those random collections we saw last time, like Merry Mavericks and Dizzy Doctors, that were just kind of scatterings of whatever. The last two releases we saw from 2004, Stooges at Work. This set works because it has some of the best Stooges shorts on it. Two of my all-time favorites, 1940's How High Is Up and 1941's Dutiful But Dumb, are absolute must-sees. Great gags. Still remain pretty iconic today, I think. Crash Goes the Hash from 1944 is a lot of fun. Booby Doops from 1945 has some good moments. It took Laurel and Hardy's Toad in a Hole and kind of expanded on that. There were a lot of Stooges shorts that were sort of partial remakes or reworkings of Laurel and Hardy shorts, like Pardon My Clutch was taken from Perfect Day and whatnot. But it's nice to see this one here, even though it's not a better one. It's still cool to compare it to Stan and Ollie. And Three Missing Links from the 30s, never one of my favorites, but John Lester Johnson as the decidedly politically incorrect witch doctor Baloney Salami is worth the price of admission, I'd say. So, there you go. And then the last one of the little themed sets, Stooges and the Law, also from 2004. Again, shorts that have a cohesive theme, and also a lot of really fun ones in here. Idiots Deluxe, Mo Needs a Vacation for His Nerves and whatnot. It's a lot of fun. Pop Goes the Easel. I showed that to my film students, and we talked about taking art class. You know, were you good in art? Were people copying off you? I was never good in art, I'll tell you that. But Yes, We Have No Bonanza's fun. In the Sweet Pie and Pie, very underrated. Three Troubledoers is kind of weak. It's one of Curly's last ones, but again, it fits in the set here. I don't think it stands out too much in the sense that like doesn't belong. It's just sort of a more sluggish performance from Curly. And these three wrapped up the themed sets. So we're all done with these little kind of scattered releases, you know, 5 here, 6 there, whatever. I think maybe the sales returns on these were somewhat lower, maybe than Sony anticipated. Or should I say, you know, Columbia, Tristar, whoever. I know they're all affiliated somehow. But we weren't quite done yet. We got one more thing to cover when it comes to Stooges DVD releases, and it's perhaps the most polarizing thing. I did a video a long time ago of my colorized VHS tape collection. You know, taking black and white films, adding color to them. With VHS tapes, it's kind of weird because you basically had to buy the colorized tape or the black and white tape. If you wanted both, then you had to pay for both. DVDs have the advantage, as I said in that video, and I'll say it again now, have the advantage because you can have both formats at once. And in some cases, as with these Stooges releases I'm going to talk about, you can toggle from one to the other even while you're watching. So like I show the colorized version of The Most Dangerous Game to my students when we read it in class and we watch the movie, so they can see it there. They probably would like that a little bit better than black and white. But with the Stooges, we received several colorized releases. So the first one I actually bought new back in 2004, or whatever it was. Let me double check for you. Yeah, 2004. I actually bought the bundle set of Stooged and Confused and Goofs on the Loose. And I'll show you those real quick. So again, you technically got 8 shorts. You got the 4 shorts on each one in black and white and colorized. And we'll do Goofs on the Loose first. So we'd already seen home video releases of Men in Black and Punch Drunks, but then we got new, and you can even see on the back, it's very clearly marked there with those orange squares. We get 2 from 1937, The Sitter Downers, very fun short, highly recommended. And Playing the Ponies, that one's pretty fun too. So we get 2 releases, or 2 new releases, and 2 we've already seen, but now you can see them in color. You know, I don't mind the colorized shorts. They're interesting to watch, and sometimes you notice things in them you don't really notice in the black and white ones as much. Stooged and Confused does something a little bit different. We only have one short that we'd already seen before. That was Violent is the Word for Curly. The remainder were all new to DVD. Again, you can see those little orange boxes there. So you see You Nasty Spy, No Senses, No Feeling, and Ache in Every Steak. All very good shorts. All very wise choices to colorize. So I'm kind of glad that they packaged those together. Again, you know, the colorized ones can make for a fun watch, something a little bit different. And they packaged these releases with some of the older ones, some we saw in that big 12 DVD set, because maybe they figured the colorized ones would help maybe sell some of that overstock or something like that. So, pretty darn cool. So even though by 2004, 2005 we were pretty much done with these, I guess they figured that the colorized ones could still sell. I'm assuming that these two were at least relatively successful. In 2006 we got Stooges on the Run. So this is after all those theme collections have been released, have come and gone, and we're on the cusp of those sort of more seasonal releases, you know, like the Stooges 1934 to 1936 was released around this time. But this one was met with a very tepid reaction because all 4 of these shorts were released on those previous themed collections. So we had no new material here. Not to mention, Disorder in the Court was in the public domain. It had been colorized before, probably several times, and that was also an issue. So, although there are a lot of good shorts on this set, yeah, you know, it really didn't bring anything different to the table, barring those colorized versions. We didn't see any films we'd never seen before. The last sort of, I guess, thematic Stooges release isn't really thematic besides the fact they're colorized, but the last that just had a handful of shorts was 2007's Hapless Halfwits. First time Shemp shorts were officially colorized by Columbia. You can see the Shemp logo there. We got 2 new curly ones. They're not marketed as such, but Beer Barrel Polecats and I'll Never Heil Again had never been released to home video. A lot of fans were angry that Beer Barrel Polecats was featured because that one has a lot of stock footage from earlier shorts. It's not a lot of new material there. So like, why didn't they release, you know, So Long Mr. Chumps or a film that this one borrowed from? And we have 2 Shemp shorts, unfortunately both of which were more common. Dopey Dicks had a DVD release, and Brideless Groom was in the public domain, so it too had been unofficially colorized before on at least one occasion, and that kind of soured it. So talk about ending on a bum note, you know, kind of the last single Stooges release before those bigger sets took over was really met with a pretty tepid reaction. There was one random colorized short that was released about 2004, 2005, as a bonus feature on the DVD of Breakin' All the Rules, the Jamie Foxx comedy. Although Jamie Foxx is a very talented actor, and Peter MacNicol as well, who's in this, and he's in Sophie's Choice and stuff, this movie was met with a very, you know, tepid reaction and doesn't really seem to be a favorite of anybody. And notably, a lot of Stooges fans, myself included, bought it solely for one bonus feature. That was the colorized version of 1935's Hoi Polloi. So one more Stooges short was colorized, and it was put onto this DVD for some reason. I've never really found out why, but I'm sure it helped to sell this DVD. Hoi Polloi was already made available on DVD. It was on the Nutty But Nice collection there, but if you want the colorized one, you have to buy this release, specifically this one too. I don't think any of the reissues of Breakin' All the Rules have the colorized version on. I think it's just this specific one. They did a good job colorizing it, but all told, it's kind of an odd inclusion, you know, a romantic comedy. Why would you include the Stooges' take on Pygmalion? Who knows? And that pretty much does it for those Stooges smaller collections. Again, by this time, by the mid-late 2000s, we're used to seeing proper television seasons, and so it kind of paved the way for these sorts of releases. Now, colorizing seemed to be the exception to the rule. Like this Lucy DVD, I said we'd come back to it, and indeed we will, has some colorized episodes on it as like an added, you know, bonus, that kind of thing. You can watch the colorized version of the Christmas episode, but it's not fully colorized, which is kind of weird. But this is showing that maybe they felt if they kept putting out these smaller colorized releases that maybe they could have stretched it out. But I think the reaction to Stooges on the Run and Hapless Halfwits was, you know, sluggish enough that they were like, yeah, let's just release them in seasons. So, you know, with Lucy as like a one-off, this probably sold pretty well and probably worked, but with the Stooges, fans wanted the whole thing, all 190, which we eventually got, along with all 5 Ted Healey's and all the feature films, which we'll get to someday here, a bunch of other things. So, what are your thoughts on colorization or Stooges themed collections? Please comment them below. I look forward to hearing from you. And until then, my friends, spread out.